Everybody ready to learn how to really be a dog whisperer?
Yeah.
Cool. Well, I'm Robin. Thank you all so much for showing up today. I know it's a beautiful day out there, so I definitely appreciate you spending a little time indoors with me. This presentation is called How to Talk So Your Dog Will Listen. And I'll say a couple of words just about who I am and how I ended up doing what I do, and then we'll get into the presentation. So my name is Robin Shepard, and I am a canine behavior specialist. Some people use the term behaviorist, which technically you're not supposed to if you don't have your PhD, but I really do live in that world of canine behavior in terms of what dogs do when they're allowed to just be dogs, and how we can observe that and learn from that and use that in our relationships with our dogs. So, how to talk so your dog will listen. Which is kind of a misnomer, because the first thing that I want to say about that is don't talk so much. Shh. Because dogs are not verbal creatures. They certainly vocalize, but they don't use or understand language in the way that we do. And that's really what accounts for the vast majority of miscommunication, misunderstanding, and behavior problems. So we're going to learn a little bit about how dogs communicate with each other and how it's different from how humans communicate with each other, and how we can use that knowledge to more effectively communicate with our dogs. So also, we are primates. Dogs are canids, so we behave like the apes that we are descended from. So now people say, I'm not descended from a monkey, and that's true. We're not actually descended from a monkey per se, but we and the apes have a common ancestor that is a primate, and apes are primates and we are primates. And so primate behavior looks very different from canid behavior. And also, the vast majority of our communication is informational and idea-based, which is why we need to use all those words to make clear what it is that we're trying to communicate. And again, this is not something that dogs have a concept of, really. So, how do dogs communicate with each other? Oh, let me go back. So this book, The Other End of the Leash, the library did not have it for me to put on the table, but it is one of my very favorite dog behavior books that I highly recommend, and it's really about the subtitle, which you can't read, is Why We Do What We Do Around Dogs. And it is just a great comparing and contrasting of primate behavior and canid behavior. Yeah. And then this book, The Culture Clash, is my other. If you're only going to read one dog book in your whole life, read this one. If you're going to read two, read this one and The Other End of the Leash. I would love it if you would read more. But those two are definitely my top two to help people understand how dogs think and learn, and how dogs perceive the things that we do. So dog-dog communication is largely a telegraphing of an emotional state. How does the dog feel? Is it wary? Is it frightened? Is it excited? Etc. Right? It's not about, you know, I want to communicate this concept to you. It's I'm feeling this way. Maybe I need help. Maybe something is exciting and we should go investigate it together, etc. So it's mostly about emotion. It's also much more linked to survival as a species. Clearly, we have to communicate to survive as a species, but our primary motivation is not, at this point in our evolution, survival. Whereas in the world of dogs, they need to be able to communicate with each other to survive because they are highly social and they're pack animals. They do some vocalizing, as we talked about. Certainly, what does this mean? Right? Who has dogs and who does that when somebody's in the yard or around, right? That's an alarm bark. And sometimes they'll do that one staccato woof and wait, and woof and wait. And often that is, I'm out here and I would like to come in, or, you know, they're just trying to get your attention. So dogs certainly do vocalize, but they certainly do not vocalize in the same way or the same amount that we do. Most of what they do is ritualize gestures and behaviors, so that from one dog to another, the same expression and the same body language always mean the same thing, and usually it's about communicating an emotional state with the goal of having a peaceful situation between the dogs, or it's a survival-based communication in terms of, you know, pay attention to me and look over there because there's a gazelle and we're all going to hunt it down and kill it, and that's dinner. And also in play, in interactions with each other. Most play is ritualized aggression, and that's humans and dogs, because what is football? It's war, right? It's armies going to war. And so that is a ritualized form of aggression where, people certainly do get hurt, but hopefully nobody gets dead. And so with play, with dogs, it's all very ritualized form of aggression as well. And so they do things that normally would be highly offensive and highly aggressive to another dog, but they preface it with certain behaviors like a play bow that looks like this, a nice fast little bow that they do that means, hey, let's play. And they also do this little, this sound, and that's a happy sound. Dogs aren't sneezing when they do that. That's, I'm happy, this is awesome. And often it also means that really scary thing that I just did a second ago, I was totally playing, we're still playing, and we're still having fun, and everything's cool. Because sometimes certainly play can spill over into aggression, right? If a dog does not have the right sort of ability to communicate and receive and give the right signals, it can quickly go from being everybody's having a great time to a full-on dog fight. All right, primate versus canid behavior. What's different? Lots of things. So, facial expressions. What do we have here? We have a human smiling beautifully, and she's very happy, and we know that because we're people and we get it. What's this guy doing? He's doing the same thing that she's doing, but it means something totally different. It means these are my teeth, and if you don't back off, I'm going to bite you with them. And it's one of the behaviors that dogs do that's considered a distance increasing behavior. The vast majority of dog communication behaviors falls either into distance increasing or distance decreasing, which is come closer, let's play, let's interact, or go away and stay away. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. But in humans, this is a distance decreasing behavior. This means come on over. And in dogs, it's a distance increasing behavior. It means go away and leave me alone. And that's just one little way that, we're so different that it's amazing that we can really communicate at all. Different ways of touching. Canids don't have hands like we do, right? And so they don't take their paw and pet each other. They lick and they smell and they rub and like that. Whereas primates and monkeys and humans, we like to use our hands a lot. They're very convenient. We have these fantastic opposable thumbs, and what we like to do is we like to walk right up to a dog and stick our hand out like that. And right over their head. And dogs do not care for that. It's what we do when we're meeting somebody for the first time, right? We walk up to another human, we look them in the eye, and we just stick our hand right out there. And that's correct, and that's what we do. And see, she's doing this beautiful tooth display that as a human means come closer, but to a dog it means go away. And also I'm into your space with my hand here. And these are not things that dogs understand or like. So for example, how good is a dog's sense of smell? We might notice a teaspoon of sugar in our coffee. A dog could detect a teaspoon of sugar in 1,000,000 gallons of water. And we have to remember when we're dealing with dogs, when we're around dogs, when we have dogs with us, just how sensitive they are. So a dog is perceiving in the environment lots of stuff that we're not aware of. You have the option always, hopefully, to remove your dog from the situation. You don't have to stand there, you don't have to correct their behavior, you don't have to do a darn thing except for just get them out of there to a place where they can be calm and comfortable. Because a calm, comfortable dog is a well-behaved dog, generally speaking. And so, we talked a little bit about distance increasing and distance decreasing behavior and canid social structure. So, got some nice gifts here. Now watch. Did you see that? Nice play bow, nice tail wag. Ready to go, hanging out with the baby, come closer, let's play, this is good stuff. And this guy is definitely saying what?
Stay away.
Go away, stay away. That's exactly right, that's exactly right. And so the play bow is one kind of ritualized gesture, and I was talking with some of the ladies before, there's another kind of bow that's a greeting. So you'll watch and see, if you start paying attention, dogs have all kinds of rituals that they do socially, and they try to invite us to do them as well. And so the sort of down dog stretch in yoga like this is actually also a dog greeting. A nice slow bow with a stretch is a greeting. And sometimes you may see, if you pay attention, that when you get home and your dog wants to greet you and you bend over or reach down to touch them, they will often bow to you. And they are responding to what they perceive as a bow, or they're offering you a bow for you to respond to. And since we do usually bend over, lean over, touch them, scratch them, etc., it pays off. And so that's a way that they try to relate to us that we can pay attention to. All right, calming signals. This is another fantastic book. It's actually not very big, but it's full of amazing ideas. Calming signals are a specific category of canid behavior that is not really distance increasing or distance decreasing. What it is to diffuse tension that is perceived. So just a few calming behaviors: moving slowly, moving in a curve like we talked about before, lip licking and yawning. Those are calming behaviors, and what happens then is that if another dog is approaching, or your dog is approaching another dog, and they become aware of each other and there's some kind of uncertainty, discomfort, tension, things like that perceived by either dog, they will start doing calming signals. They will turn their head, they'll yawn, they'll lick their lips, and that is all specific intentional behavior that dogs use to basically say, I'm okay, you're okay, it's okay. So pay attention to that, because your dog will try to use calming signals on you. And that means that your dog's feeling weird, like something might not be totally okay. And it's a good clue for us to look around again in the situation, in the environment, and what is our dog responding to that's not quite 100% for them. You'll notice sometimes with people who are very rough, when they're showing affection to dogs, when they're doing a lot of that thumping, patting, hard scratching, face smacking stuff, that dogs will start yawning and lip licking and turning their head away. And it's a very subtle gesture. We're much more overt in our communication. They're much more subtle, and you can miss it if you don't know what it is and you're not looking for it. But if you're patting your dog, scratching your dog or whatever, and they start to do a bunch of that lip licking, yawning stuff, it's usually because they are either overstimulated or it's causing them discomfort in some way, and they're trying to calm you down. Another really good example is Rover's over here, I'm over here, Rover, come! And you know, he either completely ignores me or he looks my way and then goes on about his business, right? And I'm a typical dog owner, and I'm like, Rover, you're a bad dog, get over here right now, you know? And often what Rover will do is sit down or lie down or begin coming towards me, but very slowly. And typical dog owner that I am, what's the matter with you? You're taking too long, hurry up, bad dog, rah, rah. And really what's happening there is that the dog is moving toward you slowly or indirectly, or offering you that sit or that down as a calming signal because they perceive that you are upset. And also, a quick thing about that come command, I have found that it is a great deal easier to get a dog to follow you or come with you than it is to get a dog to come to you when you are face on and standing still. Because face on, standing still is primate behavior, right? And we're trying to do distance decreasing behavior. Come on, come on, come on, I'm facing you, I'm standing still, but come on, come on, come on. But everything about me is saying don't come closer. And if I get mad because my dog didn't come, that's a whole bunch more stuff that's saying don't come closer. You know? And so there's this communication breakdown, and everybody is frustrated. So here's some more behaviors that we can look for and talk about. And so we talked about yawning and lip licking as a calming signal, but a whole bunch of yawning and lip licking can be stress, can be a stress indicator. And technically, calming signals are at the very bottom of the stress response. So something's not right and I'm trying to fix it. So at a certain point, the dog figures out that they can't fix the situation and that they're very uncomfortable and they want something to change. Displacement behaviors. What's a displacement behavior? Does anybody know? Okay. A displacement behavior is what an organism does because they are being prevented from doing what they really want to do. Most of the time, you know, if you learn this language and you observe your dog and you observe other dogs, you will be able to pick up pretty quickly on, is it a distance increasing behavior, is it a distance decreasing behavior, is it a stress response, is it a displacement behavior, if you just look. So if we don't look, we don't know, and we're not paying attention, then we think Fido has fleas because he's scratching his ear, right? And we think he's tired because he's yawning a whole bunch, and we think he's allergic to something because he's sneezing a whole bunch. But actually, those things are all communicative behaviors, so that we can watch for those. Ear scratching, the urogenital check, right? When a dog feels weird, often they will check between their legs and make sure that their junk is still there. And it's a thing that dogs do that indicates that they may be uncomfortable in the situation with what's going on. So again, certainly sometimes they just need to, you know, they've got an itch there or what have you, but a lot of the time that urogenital checking, that is my junk there thing, is like, I feel weird, so I'm just gonna look down there and make sure that, yeah, okay, cool. Yeah. Stressy behavior, whale eye. If your dog, and it doesn't, most of these behaviors happen in combination with other behaviors, and it usually happens sort of independently of one another. So a stressed out dog, you may see that their ears are pinned back and their head is like tilted or turned away. And whale eye is when you can see the whites of their eyes. Their eyes are big, and on the side you can see that half moon of white. That's not a normal presentation. That is a stress marker. So keep an eye out for stuff like that, because it's our job to help them be safe, healthy, comfortable, and happy. And if we don't understand when they're demonstrating that they're uncomfortable, stressed out, and unhappy, we can't help them. And the thing that breaks my heart is that when we don't know any better, we often correct or punish or scold or become emotionally upset by these behaviors. And really, the dog is asking for help. Something is weird, I need you to fix it. This place is weird, we need to go. And you know, we're humans and we're embarrassed by our dog's behavior, and other people are watching, and so we want to correct them and discipline them, and you know, we're not helping anybody. You know, we need to pay attention to what our dog is telling us and respond appropriately. So those are some different behaviors that we can look for. And I know you guys are not going to be able to read all this, but Tord Rugas, who did the original research and wrote the book about the calming signals, has made this wonderful scale. So at the bottom of the scale, the dog starts to feel uncomfortable, and they are sniffing the ground, and they are scratching behind their ear. And then they try to diffuse the situation by yawning, lip licking, looking away, turning away, moving slowly. Okay, that didn't work. Now our dog is getting more stressed. And so the stress reactions that you're going to see: panting, pupil dilation, shaking off, sweaty paws, trembling, shaking, whale eye, and hackling or piloerection. Those are all, which is when the hair goes up on the back of the dog. And at a certain point, if they're not getting what they need by throwing those calming signals, they're going to stop trying. They're going to become aroused to a point where, you know, they're not able to do this sort of conscious communication, and you're going to have a dog that is freezing in place, has their mouth very closed and very hard, and kind of the staring eyes. This is a stressed out dog, and this is where, when we've got a dog that's in a freeze like this, we want to be super careful, because we're real close to the point where this dog is going to react in a way that could definitely be harmful. So, where are we? Lower levels of stress. Okay, here we go. Communication efforts to decrease stress levels and perceived aggression. And then we get into this, and this is the preparation to take action, right? And then the extreme level of stress. Nothing that I tried worked, and so now I have to act. And that looks like lunging and biting. So preparation for that is the tooth display and the growling vocalization. And let's talk about that for a second, because what do we as humans do, again, because we're embarrassed and we think our dog should act like a person and things like this, and the dog growls at someone. What do we do? Anybody?
Scold.
Usually we do, don't we? Yeah, so here's why we don't want to do that. This is a predictable sequence of behaviors, except for the fact that not all dogs do all the behaviors in sequence. Some dogs will freeze, then they'll do tooth display, then they'll growl, then they'll stare, then they'll lunge, then they'll air snap, then they'll bite. Some dogs will go straight from a freeze and a hard stare to a bite. And so if you have a dog that's like freeze, hard stare, growl, lunge, bite, and you take away their growl, you don't allow them to do that, you prevent them from doing that distance increasing vocalization, you're going to have a dog that skips that step, and you just lost your early warning system. And that dog's going to bite. So we don't ever want to punish or scold our dogs anyway, because they're very sensitive, and we don't want them to be afraid of us, because they will not work with us and for us if they are afraid of us. Dogs are Zen masters, not fortune tellers. To dogs, it's always now, which is great. They're a wonderful, example for us in that way. And they respond to our emotional state in the moment with no concept of future consequences when doing bad behaviors. So what are we talking about here? We're talking about the dog that gets into the trash. You come home, right? And you're like, Sparky, what did you do? And then Sparky, what? Gives you a little whale eye, pins his ears back, turns his head away, and you're like, see, he's guilty. He knows he did something wrong. They have no concept of morals, okay? Wild canids are carnivorous predators. Domesticated canids are omnivorous scavengers, okay? So there is no guilt, no remorse, no second guessing. It's just not part of their world. It's not how their brain works. So while he is doing this so-called bad behavior of getting into the trash, which is a totally normal dog thing to do, which is in fact one of the reasons why dogs and humans began to live together, right? Garbage disposal. And so, you know, how confusing is it that, you know, here, you can have this food, but I take the exact same kind of food and I put it in the trash can? Nope, you can't have that. Nope, that's not for you. Well, guess what? When you're gone and they're bored, you know, they're gonna let their snouts do the walking and find something interesting to get into. And at no time are they thinking, when mom comes home, she's gonna be mad, but I'm gonna do this anyway. They're thinking, that is delicious. You know, and then you come home, Sparky, what did you do? And they're like, oh God, mom's home and something's wrong. But they have no concept that it's because of what they did earlier that was bad. Not even a little bit. So, important. So here's another thing that I hear people say. He's just doing that to piss me off. He knows better. He's just being stubborn. Well, I'm going to tell you, I don't know everything, but one thing I know for sure, dogs never want their people to be unhappy. They're happy, we're happy, everybody's happy. We're sad, they're sad. We're scared, they're scared. We're mad, they're scared. You know, the unhappy people are not good news for dogs. Unhappy person is bad news for dogs. So he's just doing that to piss me off is not a real thing. Your dog does not ever want you to be mad. He's not doing what you asked him to do for many, many other reasons than that. Because if a dog is going to influence your emotional state intentionally, they want you to be happy. They want you to be excited. Because happy, excited people are good news for dogs. Because we play, we pet, we feed, we treat, all those things. So please keep that in mind. Again, dogs cannot experience guilt or remorse. They have no concept of past actions. They have no concept of morals. They have no concept of manners. So pretty simple creatures. Good news for dogs, bad news for dogs. That's about it. They also cannot act with malice or seek revenge. So sometimes people will say, he's peeing in the house to get back at me because I left him alone. And that is so much more planning and thought process than our canid friends are capable of. Their brains just don't work that way. So probably he's peeing in the house because he's upset, because he's scared, because he did not have enough chances to go outside to the bathroom. He has a urinary tract infection. There's a million reasons, again, why that might happen, but it's not because he wants to get back at you or punish you. Dogs will generally mirror a human's emotional state and or intensity of arousal. Sparky, Sparky, let's go play, right? And Sparky's like, yeah, let's go play. Perfect mirroring, perfect example. When we're sad, when we're blue, when we're just kind of hanging out and not feeling that great, Sparky's gonna probably come over and put his head on our leg or curl up next to us on the couch because he's reading our emotional state and he's responding to that. Reactive versus responsive. So, the arousal threshold. So there's, you know, arousal can look like different things. I want to go to the park. I want to go to the park. That's arousal. I don't like you. Please go away right now. That's also arousal. Different kinds, but it's excitement. It's a level of activity. It's an intensity of emotional state. And when a dog goes above that arousal threshold, the faster and farther they go above that in terms of their level of intensity of arousal, they have that biochemical thing that happens, right? The fight, flight, freeze. And so sort of any kind of problem-solving, thinking, learning stuff is off the table, and they're into pure reaction. And reactive, by the way, is what we say now instead of aggressive, because those behaviors do not happen in a vacuum. They are always happening as the result of something in the dog's environment. Whether that's readily apparent to us or not, that is always the case. And so they react. As long as our dog is below threshold and not having that biochemical experience of excitement and the behaviors that come from that, then you have a dog that is able to learn and problem solve, and that's what we want. And actually, it's the same story for us, right? When we get into fight, flight, freeze, if it's an emergency, we are not mulling things over logically, and we're acting, we're reacting, right? As long as we're calm, no matter what's going on, then we have the choice of responding. But once we go over threshold, and we get into that stuff with the chemistry of our brains and our bodies, we lose our ability to respond, and we are only able to react. So we are very similar in that way. So here's a dog, obviously, that's above threshold. And here's a dog that is nice and calm and attentive and ready to work and learn. So now that we've done all this nice backgroundy stuff here, how can we use this knowledge to communicate more effectively with our dog? So Wile E. Coyote buys all his stuff for roadrunner hunting from the Acme company, right? Everybody remember that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, okay, so this is our acronym. ACME, Acme. First thing you gotta have, attention. Dog's not paying attention, you can't have communication. Next thing you need is communication. They need to understand what it is that you are trying to tell them or ask them to do. Next is motivation. They can understand, but if they do not have a compelling reason to do it, they will not do it. And finally, empathy. How is the dog feeling? What is the dog thinking? What does the dog need? What does the dog want? Which is a piece that has really been missing from dog training in terms of we've all sort of been taught in the past that, you know, you give the command and the dog does the behavior, and if they don't do the command correctly, then you have to punish and correct them, and you have to make them do X, Y, and Z. And, you know, I just sort of go, how's that working for you? Because, you know, it's just not the most fulfilling way to have a relationship and have communication. And when we realize, remember, and understand that dogs have feelings and that they have needs and wants and et cetera in the moment with regard to communication and behavior, we're just going to have a much better time of it. So attention, the foundation of obedience, right? If you do not have attention, you cannot have communication. What we're doing here is called lure reward training. The dog sees the treat and she's going to follow it. Watch me. Unless you drop crumbs, in which case she will get them off the floor. Yes, thank you. Good job. So I've got her attention. So sustained eye contact is not a natural thing for a dog to do. When one dog stares at another dog, the lesser dog in the equation is expected to break the gaze and turn the head. So we want to encourage our dogs to look at us and maintain eye contact so that we can communicate with them. Okay, so I'm letting her know that looking me in the face and looking me in the eyes is good news for dogs. Okay, so that's how we teach attention. Lay down for me. Good job. Facial expressions, again, please make sure that your facial expression, you know, is communicating to your dog that they are safe, they should feel comfortable, and, you know, they should want to be involved in this interaction with you, because, you know, you will absolutely draw more flies with dog treats, basically. Good news for dogs equals a dog that is wanting to pay attention, wanting to communicate, wanting to work, wanting to learn. So just the quick and dirty on that, okay? This is a nice, happy, open, relaxed dog face. Okay? I have a little smile, and a ton, a little bit, and nice soft eyes, and I'm ready to learn, and I'm ready to work, okay? So as long as we kind of keep our facial expressions nice and lifted and light and happy like this, this is communicating, this is fun, this is good, everything's cool. But the second that we start to get irritated, and we start to frown and scowl and close our mouth and stuff, and we're not thinking about how the dog is perceiving this, because we're so focused on using our words. Rover, down. I said down. Down, Rover, down. And I'm pissed off because I said it a million times and he's not doing it and my face looks like this. And he doesn't want to interact with me or work with me when my face looks like that. So if I'm feeling like my face is going to start looking like that, it's time to stop. It's time to turn around, walk away, give the dog a break. Clear, consistent signaling. So if a dog has learned a behavior, we want to make sure that our face and our body always look exactly the same when we ask for that behavior, so that there is no confusion about it. We'll talk a little bit about lure reward training, in which we teach our dog, we move them and their head and what have you around by showing them a treat, right? And like so. So when we get rid of the lure, because we don't always need a treat to have our dog obey, and we'll talk about that a little bit as well. So I have a treat, here's the treat, but if I don't have a treat, it still looks the same. It still looks exactly the same. This is sit at my house. Or some people will teach the sit with a treat in the palm of the hand and over the dog's head so they follow it and sit, and then they give the dog the treat, which is also fine. I just usually you know, we have opposable thumbs. I have it in between my fingers, so I show it to them, I lift it, I put it over their head, they sit, I feed it to them. Thank you. See, Echo's totally responding to that, even though she knows that I don't have a treat in my hand. She's conditioned to know that that is good news for dogs if she puts her butt on the floor when she sees my hand do that motion with my face and my body, excuse me, in the way that they were. Good job, thank you. So the most important thing is letting them know when they get it right. So as humans, we are so critical, and not just with our dogs, in general, everything's fine, everything's fine, everything's fine. We don't say anything, we don't respond. But when something goes wrong, that's bad, that's a problem. We're going to focus on that and deal with it and fix it, which, you know, is somewhat functional, I guess, in our lives as human beings. But in our communication with our dogs, it's totally useless. Because basically, every time they do something you don't like, you say wrong, you say no, you say bad, all they know is that you're in a weird mood and maybe they should be a little bit afraid of you. You know, it affects their emotional state negatively, whereas, yes, you're a good girl. Yes, you're doing a good job. She's engaged. She wants to work. She's like, I will offer you this sit for as long as you want me to, or maybe I'll offer you a down. How about a down? Thank you, good girl. You got it right. Good job, good job. Yes, and she knows. Yeah, good job. So especially with a service dog, I mean, with any dog, we want to be super, super careful not to scare them, not to punish them, not to correct them. But with a service dog, it's even more important because we want her to readily, calmly offer these behaviors no matter what's going on in the environment. So we got to let them know when they get it right, because saying no and saying wrong and yelling at the dog does not give them any useful information. Letting them know when they get it right gives them lots of useful information. They're like, okay, this is a thing that I can do, and when I do it, it's good news for dogs. You're a good girl. Yes, you are doing such a good job. Yes, you are. Yes, you are. So I just used a lot of words right there, and I didn't expect her to understand those words. What I wanted her to understand with my happy face and the scratching under the chin is that she's getting it right and she's doing a good job, and this is a safe, comfortable, okay situation. Motivation, right? Compelling reason to do what we ask. What does the dog want? Not what do you think the dog wants, what should the dog want? Like should not ever be a word that we use around our dogs. Are you just offering me behaviors? Yes, because you want to play the game with me, don't you? Because it pays off. That's very good. So they need a compelling reason to do the behavior, and every dog is different. Some dogs are highly motivated by praise, by play, by affection, most dogs. And then, of course, things dogs naturally want. Number one thing dogs naturally want is food. That is a primary reinforcer. In and of itself, it is good news for dogs. Secondary reinforcers are things that predict the arrival of a primary reinforcer. So I say yes to mark behavior that I like. Some people use a clicker to mark behavior that they like and to reinforce it so that it occurs more frequently. So you can attach a primary reinforcer to a secondary reinforcer so that the secondary reinforcer is the predictor of the food treat. And we'll talk some more about that, but that's kind of a basic. What does the dog want? Do they want a delicious bone? Do they want you to pet, praise, and play? Do they want you to throw the ball? What does your dog want? And how can you give it to them in a way that gets you what you want? Food, the primary reinforcer. So different treats have different values to dogs. So we have like a gold, a silver, and a bronze level treat, and basically the more difficult of a skill you're trying to teach or reinforce, the higher value treat you need to use. Also, if it's a skill that they know but you're putting it in a different environment with distractions, you need to use a higher value treat because they have to have a compelling reason to do what you want, and there is such a thing as competing motivation in the environment. So if Sparky always comes when I call him at home from this distance, but now we're at the dog park and he's at that distance, I have no reasonable expectation that he's going to come because there's serious competing motivation in the form of all these other dogs and smells and things and stuff. So we have to make sure that our reinforcer is more reinforcing than whatever is in the environment if we want the behavior. The 3 S's of high value treats: small, soft, and smelly. Okay, so crunchy biscuits and stuff are fine for something that is easy for them, that they've been doing forever, you know, and they just want a treat and you want to give them one. You ask them to sit, you know. But if you're trying to get them, for example, to come to you in a crowded place with a lot of distractions, then you want to up the ante. Freeze-dried liver is very popular among dog trainers. Dogs really, really like it. It doesn't actually stink that bad to us, and it's not smushy and gross. So I've used that definitely in the past. I usually like to use, I always look at the dog treats and make sure that they're not primarily made out of corn and wheat, because a lot of them are. So you want to look for something that has meat as the first ingredient. It's hard to get away from stuff that has some corn and wheat in it, unless you actually, grain free, but that's more expensive. But definitely look for those meat ingredients. So these are some chicken meatballs that I got. Dog treat chicken meatballs, not human ones. And so they're about yay big, but I can break them up very easily into small pieces. And they're very soft. And they're definitely quite smelly. Watch me. Yes. Thank you. Good job. Watch me. Yes. Thank you. Good job. So a small, soft, smelly treat, and lots of it in little itty-bitty pieces, so a high rate of reinforcement is really what you want when you're teaching and practicing new or difficult skills. Okay, empathy. We've talked a lot about this already, and we're going to talk about it a little bit more. How does the dog feel? Here's some great illustrations from Jack and Wendy Volhard's book about dogs. They're wonderful. They have some fantastic training manuals and stuff, and I love these illustrations. So what does this dog feel?
Tired.
Scared, right? Submissive paw raise, tucked tail, he's slinking off, right? And then this one is actually quite subtle. This is the difference between ears up and ears back. So this is a confident, interested dog. This is a wary, suspicious dog. This dog is supplicating, doing calming signals, and this dog is doing like the big submit of showing the belly. So do they feel safe or threatened? Are they bored or interested? Are they energetic or are they tired? Are they relaxed or are they stressed? These are things that we always need to look at our dog and ask. How does my dog feel? What does my dog want? What does my dog need? How can I use that information for us to have a peaceful, mutually fulfilling relationship? All right, so here's some nuts and bolts of behavioral science. There's basically two types of behavior modification that we generally do with dogs. This is Pavlov. In case anybody can't read, watch what I can make Pavlov do. As soon as I drool, he'll smile and write in his little book, which I thought was hilarious. So of course the Pavlovian experiment was that, and it wasn't actually the purpose, it was a byproduct of the experiment, was that the primary reinforcer and the secondary reinforcer could be linked. So the food was the primary reinforcer, and the secondary reinforcer was the bell. So the bell was a predictor, right? I'm going to do Lure Reward in a second, so just hang on to her. So did I talk to that dog right now? No, I didn't. She's not my dog. I've only done, we've been getting together for a couple of months once a week. That is not my dog. That dog is not trained to obey me. And yet, what did I do? I got her eye contact, I got her attention, and I took her with me and dropped her off with her mom. So that's actually a really good example of how we can just use our faces and our bodies and all of those things to communicate with our dog what it is that we want and help them do it successfully. So classical conditioning is just that one-to-one association and a conditioned emotional response. The bell rings and the dog is happy because food is coming, because the bell means that food is coming. So the conditioned emotional response is awesome because you can make your dog feel happy about anything, unless it's something that is intrinsically aversive, like a bath or getting their nails clipped or what have you. It's a one-to-one association. So when we have a dog that's like freaked out about other dogs, one of the things that we do is we have a nice safe distance because we want to keep our dog below threshold, right? And then as long as they are looking at that other dog, we're going to feed them little treat after little treat after little treat after little treat, so that the sight of a novel dog now becomes a predictor of a delicious treat. And so whether they want to feel that way or not, when they see a new dog, because we have conditioned them, they will feel emotionally happy. So that is sort of the emotional outcome of, using a primary reinforcer like food and tying it to a secondary reinforcer or predictor, which can be whatever you pick. So, and then this is what shaping is, and this is sort of what clicker training is operant conditioning. And most civilians think that negative reinforcement is punishment, and that's not actually correct. So we'll just quickly go through this. There are 4 quadrants to operant conditioning. These are the reinforcement quadrants, and reinforcement means that the behavior happens more often. I want more of it, so I'm going to reinforce it. The plus sign, positive reinforcement, means that I've added something good, like a treat or a toy or whatever it is that the dog wants. Again, dogs are different. Not all dogs consider the same things good. You're usually pretty good with food. But again, some dogs are finicky and they don't like certain treats, and or they're more motivated by attention, praise, affection, play. So whatever the good thing is, it's positive reinforcement. The dog does what you want more of that behavior, so you reinforce it by adding something good to the equation so that the dog now knows this behavior is good news for dogs. Negative reinforcement is still a way to make the behavior happen more often. Negative reinforcement is the minus sign. You take away something bad. So again, when we're doing that counter conditioning with novel dogs, for example, I'm going to go ahead and reinforce because the dog is there, and then I'm also going to do negative reinforcement by taking that other dog away or taking my dog away. I'm going to remove something questionable, bad, scary, weird from the situation. So I'm still going to see more of the behavior. Now, punishment, okay, is something that makes a behavior happen less often. Positive punishment is actively adding something bad, like a shock or, scolding, or I don't even want to go there because we just don't do it. Negative punishment, though, I use all the time because it's just taking away something good when you have behavior that you don't want. And my favorite example of this is that my dogs really like to bark a lot when we're playing fetch, and I'm not excited about that. So when we have the ball and everybody's very excited, everything's fine, but as soon as that barking starts, the instant that it starts, I turn around and I put myself behind the nearest door or gate. I remove myself because I'm the good thing, I'm the game. And if they learn, and it's all about timing with punishment, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. So that instant that that bark happens, I turn and I leave and I'm gone. And they learn that they can affect their world with their behavior in that way. It takes a handful of repetitions, but they learn if your timing is good, they learn that their bark is what pushes the button that makes you disappear. And they don't want you to disappear, they want you to stay. So they stop pushing the button. But you gotta be consistent, and your timing has to be excellent because, again, not verbal, no understanding of these theories, these ideas, simply cause and effect. So if the effect follows the cause exactly and closely and perfectly, they will make that connection and they'll make a decision about what they want to do and how they're going to behave. And again, positive punishment is anything that's like squirting them in the face or zapping them with a shock collar or different things like that. So let's talk more about punishment. So what do we got here? We've got a shock collar here, got a prong collar here. Everybody know what that is? Everybody seen one? This is not a dog collar. This is a punishment delivery device. And it creates a negative association between whatever the dog is focused on and the pain that they're experiencing. And it's a great way to create an aggressive dog because they are being punished in the presence of some stimulus, often another dog or another human. And when they are not wearing that thing and they see that stimulus, it's really a crapshoot. They very well may react in aggressive fashion because they associate that painful stimulus with whatever the object was. Positive punishment to modify behavior should be an absolute last resort because you can end up with a dog that is scared, you can end up with a dog that is highly reactive, you can end up extinguishing behaviors that you didn't want, you can end up creating displacement behaviors that you don't want. So only under the guidance of a professional and only after we've tried everything else to get our message across about what it is that we want and how it will be worth their while to do it. Again, punishment also, we only use when it is a behavior that we never ever want, that's never gonna be okay. So we don't punish a dog for doing something like dog on the furniture, yes or no, up to you. I teach them get up, get off, get up, get off. And then if they're on it and I want them off, I just say get off. You know what I mean? And sometimes it's okay for them to be there, it's okay until I say it's not. So I would never punish a dog for getting on the furniture, I would just ask them to get off. Because sometimes it's okay. Now, my big dog likes to bark a lot, kind of alarmy, kind of annoying, very persistent barking. And so I do, in fact, use this. But first of all, I just use it as a mist. And this is a dog that will chase you around if you have the hose because he wants you to squirt him in the face. But if I've got him behind the baby gate and he is doing that very loud, very annoying barking, I will very simply walk up, squirt them, and walk away. So in humanness, Punishment also usually involves sort of like an angry emotional component, and that is not what punishment is in operant conditioning. It is a way to change behavior. There is not, you are a bad dog, I am not scolding you. It's very simple. When you're behind the baby gate and you do that loud, irritating bark, this will happen every time. I'm not mad at you, you're a good dog, and when you do that, that's gonna happen. And even though he likes getting sprayed in the face with the hose, he gets, because my timing is very good, that what he did caused that to happen, and he doesn't care for this. It's not fun. So it's not hurting him in any way. It's simply a stronger way to communicate and extinguish a behavior that is never okay with me, okay? So timing is everything when we're using punishment, and the vast majority of lay people just don't have the timing. They don't have the ability, which, again, it's not an intuitive thing. You have to learn it. So if you've got dog behavior going on that you don't like, don't punish your dog, call me. We'll find other ways to solve the problem. And if we do ultimately end up with needing to use punishment, we'll start with the negative punishment by taking away something good. And literally, this is as intense as any positive punishment that I would ever do. That's it. I would never use a shock collar. I would never use a prong or a choke. I don't do corrections, none of that stuff, because it's not productive. It's not going to get us what we want. Shaping. So clicker training, shaping, operant conditioning, again. We use a clicker, or we use like a verbal marker, like I say yes, to capture the exact moment that the behavior is performed that we want. So we do the classical conditioning by saying yes, treat, yes, treat, yes, treat, or click, treat, click, treat, click, treat. So the yes or the click becomes that secondary reinforcer that's the predictor of the treat. And then, since we can't get the food in their mouth the second they do what we want, we use the marker instead. So they're still going to get a treat, but we want to be clear in our communication about what they did that was right, that we liked, that we want to reinforce and see more of. So basically, for example, if I wanted to be working with ECHO, who's resting very nicely, and I'm not going to say her name and get her all excited, but this would be a great opportunity to catch her being good. She is very calm, she's laying there nicely, and in a very super calm fashion, I would probably just, yes, treat, yes, treat. So I don't have to give her a command. She knows that when she offers that behavior, it's generally good news. All right, so lure and reward training. We talked a little bit about this before, but again, it's not bribery, I promise, and you won't always need a treat to get your dog to obey you. But sort of the rule of thumb is control the head, control the dog, right? So I have this, and I can put this dog anywhere I want with this in my hand. Oh, unless you drop crumbs. Good girl, thank you. Yep, okay, watch me. Yes, thank you. Good job, good job. So that is lure reward training. I'm using that lure to move the dog where I want her, to get her to do what I want her to do so that I can reinforce it and make it happen more often. And that's the quick and dirty on lure and reward training. And again, you don't always have to have a treat to get your dog to obey. You just need to always use the same body language when you gradually fade out that lure, or you don't show it to them first. She would still get a treat, by the way, for whatever that behavior is that I was asking for. She just wouldn't see it. So I would still do the same thing with my face, my hands, and my body, but I would produce the treat after the behavior instead of using the treat to induce the behavior. So lure and reward training is a teaching tool. So, okay, so we did watch me, right? Watch me, everybody saw that. We're going to talk for real quick about management. I didn't realize it was getting so late. Big brains, opposable thumbs, and baby gates. So, go lay down. I said go lay down. Go lay down right now, right? But we don't have to do that because I can very calmly say, hey guys, come with me. Walk into the kitchen, walk back out, put up the baby gate, and the problem is solved. So let's use our big brains and our opposable thumbs to help our dogs get it right by putting them where we want them to be, keeping them away from things that we don't want them to be near, right? We want to make it so easy for them to get it right, and this is a really good way to do that. Prevent your dog from practicing mistakes, and also you don't need to constantly give and enforce commands. You can manipulate the dog's environment and situation in such a way that they will be where you want them to be, doing what you want them to do. Okay, enrichment, physical exercise. A tired dog is a good dog. Different dogs have different needs for exercise, and it's not always by size either. A Jack Russell needs to be exercised just as much as a Border Collie. Okay, A lot of the giant breed dogs don't need as much exercise. They're really more keen on just laying around. But the smaller and the medium size and the working breeds especially, they just need a ton of physical exercise. They're bred to run 25 miles a day, literally a marathon every day. So dogs that are not getting that level of exercise, you're going to see that come out in different ways in their behavior, stress, displacement, etc. So definitely make sure your dog is getting plenty of physical exercise. And if you are not particularly strong, fit, robust, or high energy, that's fine, because we can use the chuck it, right, to throw that ball and get that dog to come back to us and run and run and run and run. And we can let them play with other dogs as long as they play nicely with other dogs. So, you know, we can just be creative in finding ways to make sure that our dog gets enough physical exercise. So an important part also of enrichment is mental stimulation, and a lot of us don't think about that because, again, we haven't been taught to look at dogs as sort of thinking, emotional creatures. And so this is a treat ball. It's a puzzle ball. And so I'm going to just go ahead and give her a nice little spill because she's being a good girl. There you go. So it's in 3 pieces, and you put your little kibble treats, what have you. And I usually will put a smelly soft treat and then a bunch of kibble because the kibble will pick up the smell. And you can adjust this little hole here to be smaller or bigger and make it easier. And then there's this hole in the top. And so basically you fill it up with something yummy, put it down on the floor, and the dog learns very quickly that if they snout that thing around every so often, little bits of delicious are going to fall out. And so, you know, I know people, and I have clients, in fact, that don't even feed their dogs their meals in a bowl. They just put all of their food into different interactive, you know, puzzle toys, because what does a canid do in the wild? They scavenge, they hunt, all of that, right? And in the world, we just go, here's your food, Rover. Wah, wah. Kind of boring, really. Not super exciting, not helping dogs to be dogs. So you can go ahead and take her on out. So we want to make sure they have puzzles to solve. I like doing biscuit hunts as well. I like having them do their wait stay in the kitchen or behind the baby gate or whatever. And then I go and put a bunch of the little crunchy biscuits around. If you have a multi-dog house, it's not usually a great idea because you can get into some resource guarding. You don't want them to fight. But if you have an only dog, they need a ton of enrichment and stimulation anyway. And biscuit hunts are awesome. So. Positive new experiences. Explore the world. One of the reasons that we want a well-behaved dog is so that we can take it a lot of places with us because we enjoy its companionship. And guess what? Dogs enjoy that too. They want to go out. They want to explore. Again, they have these amazing senses, right? They can perceive so much sensorially about their world. And dogs who only get to be in their house and in their yard are missing out on a huge part of life. And you'll see that. Again, you'll see behaviors that are directly related to a dog that's not getting enough exposure to novel objects, places, people, dogs, etc. Play is so very important. They are hardwired to play for their whole entire lives. And so are we, kinda, which I think is another reason why we get along so great. And dogs need to play. They need to play with humans, and they need to play with other dogs. So we always need to try to find the time and energy to make that happen for them because it's a crucial, crucial part of enriching your dog's life. And last but not least, creating an economy. Used to be called no free lunch, nothing is free. But I'm not really down with all of that alpha dog dominancy stuff. I don't find it useful. And so certainly things are free. If I feel like giving you a cookie because you're cute and I love you, guess what? Here's your cookie. But all throughout the day, dogs want stuff. They want to go out, they want to come in, they want you to play with them, they want you to pet them, right? They want all this stuff. Not what they should want or you think they want, what they actually want. And so once you have that communication established and they can learn that they can get what they want by giving you what you want, and you've been very clear with them about what it is that you want and let them know when they get it right, it's so empowering for them because they have control over this part of their world. When they have an understanding of how they can affect your behavior and affect their environment with their own behavior. So throughout the day when your dog wants something from you, you know, rather than saying a whole bunch of words or whatever, get that eye contact, ask for the sit, and then give them what they want. In, out, play, praise, affection, get up on the couch, whatever, you know? So create an economy, something for something, at least some of the time. Okay? Voila, our summary. So, how to talk so your dog will listen. Actions, not words. Communication happens when there's calm going on. And when we are calm, our dog is calm. And also, I used to say, when we were working especially with reactive dogs, job number 1 is to keep the dog below threshold. But I've revised that recently. Job number 2 is to keep the dog below threshold. Can anybody guess what job number 1 is? keep yourself below threshold. Keep yourself below threshold, because the second that you start to feel that arousal, that frustration, that whatever, it's being communicated and you're creating stress and tension and you need to stop. So calm human, calm dog. And especially if something happens that's like bad and scary, like you're walking through the park, your dog's on a leash, somebody else is coming, their dog's on, and the dogs get into it and they have a scuffle and people get excited and they react and they're like, no, Sparky, don't do that, rah, 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 rah. You know, and that's when you have got to stay calm. When stuff like that is happening, you must be calm. And you must control yourself and your body and your face and your tone and your words and all of it. Because otherwise, you're not going to be able to diffuse the situation. You're not going to be able to effectively help your dog. So if you want to help your dog, being a calm human is super, super important. Pay them for their work. We don't work for free, neither should they, you know? Again, this is that human thing. I think it's that Puritan work ethic or something that, you know, well, of course he should obey me. Well, obviously he should do that. Well, he should know, blah, blah, blah. Well, you know, you can have all of your ideas about this kind of thing, and you guys are all very enlightened and don't even think that way, obviously. So, but the reality is that, you know, it is something for something, and they do work for you, and they do what they want you to do, what you want them to do. And it's not always natural stuff for a dog to do. They have to really kind of get out of the box and do all this weird stuff that people want. So it's important to pay them. And while you shouldn't always have treats to get your dog to obey, there's nothing wrong with always having treats on you or often having treats on you. You know, there's nothing wrong with continuing to reinforce behavior that you like with food. Nothing wrong with it. Not bribery, not spoiling the dog. It's effective communication. It's reinforcing behaviors that we like. So we pay them for their work. We make it easy for them to get it right because we don't want them to practice mistakes. So when we're teaching a new skill or something that we think they should know already, if we're not successful and we're not getting obedience in the first 1 or 2 repetitions, then we have to go back. Do we have their attention? Do they understand what we want them to do? Do they have a good reason to do it? Are we paying attention to how they're feeling in the moment, right? And we want to make it easy because we want to practice success, not practice mistakes. So, you know, you can practice your on-leash or off-leash heel in your kitchen or your living room where there's no distractions, right? I mean, you can take all of these behaviors that you want your dog to learn and you want them to do and make it ridiculously easy. Set them up to succeed every single time. The best trained dog is a dog that's never been given an opportunity to practice mistakes because it was made easy enough for them that they were able to do it successfully the first time or an approximation of success the first time, and they were reinforced for getting it right, and so they've practiced success. And that is a dog that's always going to do what you ask, barring unforeseen situations, distractions, etc. So practice those successes, not mistakes. And remember, attention, communication, motivation, and empathy for your dog. And everybody can just go ahead and take a quick little break. Ways to get your dog to bring the ball back to you. Shay, awesome. I love this question. So it's natural for dogs to chase a ball. It's natural for dogs to chase any moving object across their field of vision. It's natural for them to catch it, grab it, get it, right? What is totally unnatural is to take that piece of prey, that is that ball, and bring it to someone else and give it to them. That's not what dogs do. What dogs really love is tug and keep away. And you'll see that a lot in dogs that haven't been super reinforced for bringing and relinquishing the ball. You'll see a dog that will get the ball and they will come close to you and they will show it to you and they will run away. Or they will come really close and they'll let you touch it and then they'll pull away. Like if you try to get it from their mouth, right, and then they'll pull. And so this is natural, this is atavistic or referential to an old instinctual behavior in nature. So if there was an actual hunt and there was actual prey, there goes the prey, I'm the dog, I caught my prey, and I'm going to bring it back to my pack members, and keep away is a game, right? Look what I got, you know you want it, come on, chase me, right? And so if you reinforce them for that, you chase them, et cetera, you're going to have a dog that always wants to play keep away, and there's nothing wrong with that at all. You know, we want the dog to bring the ball back to us, but who are we playing for? Are we playing fetch because we like fetch? Because the dog doesn't necessarily like that. And then the tug is specifically an atavistic dissection behavior. So that if I've got a freshly dead rabbit in my mouth and I come over to you and I waggle it around, get you interested in and get you to take a bite, right? Then we both have a bite and we pull and it dissects the prey so that we can eat it. So tug is sort of a representation of that atavistic dissection, pulling apart of prey type of behavior. So keep away and tug are very natural for dogs, and it's generally what they like to do with anything that's like a prey symbol like that. Now, if you really do want to teach them, I usually teach fetch with multiple balls and treats. So rather than trying to make the dog do something, I let them think it was their idea. So go get it. Thank you. I've got a treat right here. And the second that dog comes near me, I'm going to lure and reward, right? I'm going to show them that treat. They're going to open their mouth so they can eat the treat. And the ball's going to fall out. And I'm going to make a big deal. Yes, 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 yes. Good dog, good dog. And I'm going to get that ball. Or if it's the dog that will not drop it, will not relinquish it, then I will just have another ball. And I'll show them and say, ready? And they will open their mouth, drop the other ball. And my dogs have learned, because of the timing, drop the ball, instantly the second one goes, and they can go after it. So you can prance around with that ball in your mouth all day long, and it's fine with me if that's what you want to do. But if you want me to throw it for you, then you're going to need to come over here and drop it, right? And I'm going to teach you that that's what I want you to do by helping you do it, by offering you another ball or offering you a treat, and then reinforcing and praising when you drop it. And so there's the praise and reinforcement, and then of course me throwing the ball again is reinforcement. Okay, what tips do you have for separation anxiety? So separation anxiety happens when we are together, and then we are apart. That's hard for dogs. So the best way to prevent separation anxiety is to make coming and going no big deal and do lots of practice absences. So when you're not really going anywhere, you just kind of casually get up, maybe grab your keys. Look at the things that cue your dog into becoming anxious if they already have it. And then you have to kind of desensitize each of those cues, putting on your shoes, putting on your coat, picking up your keys, picking up your purse, different things like that. You do that stuff and then you don't leave, so that those things no longer mean you're leaving. And then when you leave, we all like to go, oh, Spark, you're so good, I hate to leave you, it's just, I gotta go to work. Don't do that. You spent a little time with your dog, you gave him his breakfast, you took him out, you played a little bit of ball, and now you gotta get ready and you gotta go to work, so you do your thing, and your dog's needs are met. As long as your dog's needs have been met, then go about your business, little eye contact, little head nod, out the door. And when you come home, I always stand still and let them smell me so they can see where I've been and figure out what I had for lunch and all that stuff. And then, do a little ritualized greeting bow and and then I'm about my business. So comings and goings are no big deal, and practice absences of a few minutes at a time. Just leave and come back, leave and come back. Do the things that you usually do before you leave and don't leave. So you're kind of trying to loosen those associations, right? Because mom leaving is bad news for dogs, right? So no. A, mom's not leaving when she does those things, and B, when she actually does leave, it's not a big deal because she'll be back any minute. And she didn't put me in an emotional state to make me think it was a big deal when she left, and she doesn't do that when she comes home either. And that's how you sort of prevent and treat separation anxiety. And when you get into this stuff where you've got dogs that are destroying your house, hopefully it hasn't gotten to that point, but when we have that kind of separation anxiety manifesting, you absolutely need to call a behaviorist and get some help, because it's a fairly complex behavioral problem. How do I keep my dog from jumping on people? Also a great question. Gosh, I love you guys. You're great. Make my life so easy. So if we have a dog that likes to jump on people, again, we're going to manage with our big brain and our opposable thumbs. If we're at home and we're expecting somebody, we're going to put our dog behind a baby gate. Then we're going to answer the door. And if there's a bunch of barking and shenanigans going on over there, I'm going to ignore it and greet my friend. And the instant that those dogs are calm, we will both go over and get down on this side of the baby gate and down at their level and give them some treats as long as they're being nice, calm dogs. Okay, so jumping up is prevented by containing and managing the dog, by reinforcing the sit, by teaching that the sit is how you greet a human being. Also, you can let your dog drag a lead around the house. He can have his leash on when you are home. He doesn't just have to put his leash on for going out. Two things that will accomplish. Thing number one, they don't freak out every time you grab the leash because they think they're going for a walk, right? Sometimes it just means that I have to drag it around and we're staying home. Okay, so that'll calm that down. But also, a dog that's dragging a leash around is much, much easier to control. If they're going somewhere that you don't want them to go, you step on the lead. And if they are prone to jumping up on people and you're going to allow them to greet your guests, then simply put your foot on that lead so that they can't get their front feet off the floor. And then praise them and treat them for having all 4 feet on the floor. Because even though you compelled them to keep their feet on the floor by using that lead to do it, they're doing what you want, their body is in the position that you want, it's the behavior that you want, you helped them do it right, and you reinforce it because you're gonna see more of the behaviors that you reinforce. So prevent the dog from doing the wrong thing, make it easy to do the right thing, let him know that he got it right, and pay him for his work. And also a little bit of this. And also, again, we like to flap our hands around. And dogs that are prone to jumping, that's going to make them more excited, more prone to jumping. Also, all the good smells and information are here and here. And when you're a dog and you're down there and all this stuff is happening up here, you're highly motivated to jump. So if I stand still and I let my dog smell my hands, right, and see there's nothing in them and I'm not flapping around like a crazy person, right, and I come down on their level and I let them smell my face and things like that. And we don't all love to have dogs lick our faces. I'm not a huge fan of it. But if you do allow them to do it briefly, mostly they will give you a few licks and leave because it really means I love you. I love you. You're my mama and I love you, you know? And so to scold them or punish them or not permit them to do that, it's hard on them emotionally a little bit. You know, you can let them lick your hand or what have you. But yeah, if you don't want them to jump up, then hold still. Don't be exciting. Be calm and get down on their level. How to stop my dog from biting and nibbling. And I love this question too. This is great. Everything I didn't cover, you guys asked in Q&A. That's awesome. So we do not want to punish, scold, or correct. We want to prevent the behavior we don't like. We want to reinforce the behavior that we do like. So what does that look like when we're talking about mouthing and biting? You have a puppy, yeah? Okay. So supernatural for puppies to mouth and bite and chew. Their mouth is their way of learning about their world. It's their way of soothing themselves. It's useful for all kinds of stuff. And dogs, of course, in play use their mouths on each other, right? So we want to teach them that it's never okay to bite people, right? Never put their teeth on a person. So there's a couple of things. There's something called bite inhibition that dogs learn with their litter mates if they're with them long enough, which is that when they're playing, if somebody is playing too roughly and biting too hard, the puppy on the receiving end is going to say, ow, like that, you know? Ow! Ow, that hurts. Have you heard that? Have you heard a dog, you know, yelp or squeal like that when something hurts? So that is a signal in that developing puppy's mind, you know, that they used their mouth too hard or too much. And so they learn then about inhibiting their bite so that they can play by biting, of course, because dogs do. They bite when they play, but they are not using the pressure and the strength. They're just doing the motion, right? Because it's a ritualized behavior, right? So if we're playing with our puppy and they're getting mouthy with us, we want to always have at the ready a chew toy, a thing they really like. Oh, we didn't even talk about gear. So as part of enrichment and also as part of setting them up to get it right, this is a beef bone. I boiled it. I put peanut butter in it inside sometimes and, you know, let the dog, it's like a pacifier for the baby. If I'm having company or I'm leaving or whatever, I just make some peanut butter bones and everybody's happy. This is a Nylabone, and I love these. I have a big dog that's a big chewer, and I just got him this one. It's new, but the old one was actually for the smaller dog, and he still did not manage to get it broken up or really significantly damaged, so I was very impressed by that. So I just got him this one. So little, you know, things that it is okay for the dog to put in their mouth and chew. Have those at the ready. Dog gets mouthy, stick something in their mouth and praise them up for biting that and chewing that, because you're not going to stop them from biting and chewing. Right? You just got to teach them what is okay and good news to bite and chew on. So a little tug toy, a little bone, a little whatever, and as soon as they put that in their mouth and start working on it, you know, scratch them behind their ears and praise them up and let them know how good they are. Teeth on human skin, game is over. Here's something you're supposed to chew on and or game is over. So I don't have to use any words, I don't have to say no. I'm going to draw my hands in, I'm going to turn my body away, I'm going to turn my head away, and I'm not going to play with you. Negative punishment, I took away something good when you did that behavior, right? Because it's never okay. You can't bite people ever. And so I'm going to punish you by taking myself away, and the game is over. Right? Now, a positive punishment would be like, no, bad dog, no bite, blah, 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 zap, whatever. And again, we don't do that to correct behaviors that we don't like. We do an alternate behavior that we do like that we can reinforce with praise. Okay? Especially with a puppy. Because if you scold or punish a puppy at the wrong time in their development, you can have a dog that's afraid forever. And worse, afraid of you forever. And that's not what you want. So Karen Pryor's book is called Don't Shoot the Dog. One day I think I'd like to write a book called Don't Scare the Dog. Because really, part of keeping the dog under threshold is making sure that they're not frightened, especially of you. So with the biting and the mouthing, this is okay to chew and I will not play with you. And you can also do that yelping sound, and they generally will respond to that. So those are my big 3 solutions for puppy biting and mouthing. And as long as you are consistent and you do a good job while they're young, it shouldn't be a problem going forward. My big dog is like a project. He came from the shelter, he had some serious issues, he's doing a ton better, and he has marvelous bite inhibition, which is great because he's got like a mouthful of kitchen knives in there. And he, you know, because he wasn't taught correctly and he wasn't socialized correctly, he still uses his mouth in that way. And I am forever, you know, no, chew on this, no, I'm not going to play with you. And he may not ever get it because, you know, they can certainly learn over their lives, and you can teach old dogs new tricks. You can teach some old dogs some new tricks. But you have to keep in mind that if they weren't socialized correctly or they had aversive experiences at a young age or whatever the case may be, it is much harder to train undesirable behaviors out of an older dog. So there's a lot of management with that, and a lot of teaching of alternate behaviors, and a lot of the negative punishment of just withdrawing. But, you know, I don't know that he will ever learn not to use his mouth with people, and that's why he's with me. Because I have a clue, and I'm not going to put him in a situation where he's in danger, and I'm not going to put another human or another dog in a situation where they're in danger from him. And so that's how come I have the luxury of just continuing to work with him over time, is because I'm extremely careful with my management, and we're teaching these skills a little bit. So on the time and effort side of things, if you do good socializing and socializing, by the way, is not just with people and dogs. Socialization means show them the whole world, all of the sights, smells, sounds, and experiences that they're likely to have during that time, and they will learn that that is all good news for dogs. So, yeah. That's any other last spur of the moment questions that I didn't cover?
I have a question. So how detrimental is it to a dog that lives in a household where, let's say, I do what you say, but my husband does something entirely different?
That is such a great question. That is such a great question. So, yeah, we talk about consistency, and I always tell my clients right off the bat, yes, you are going to train your dog, and you're also going to train your friends and family. So that's kind of our job, and we can use our behavior modification skills in changing our human companion's behavior as well if we're clever about it. The only caveat with that is that they can't know that that's what you're doing.
What would the detrimental be? Let's say my husband, you know, is very much more reactive than I am.
Sure.
So if the dog comes up to him, I treat him a certain way, maybe positive. He'll go, no, stop it, you know. And even though I might correct him, he's going to do that because that's who he is.
Yes, and that will damage the relationship between him and the dog. And the dog will be more confused, maybe, than otherwise he would be. But relationships are relationships, and my relationship with my mother is different than my relationship with my girlfriend. You know what I'm saying? It's different, and so your dog knows that, and he has one relationship with you. He has a different relationship with your husband, you know, and your husband isn't motivated to do things differently to change that relationship. So the dog just has to roll with it. But, you know, that's sort of the trial and error aspect, because the vast majority of lay people don't know this stuff, which is why I do this, right? And dogs manage anyway and have for thousands and thousands of years, because their primary way of learning, unless we intervene and help them learn differently, is trial and error. What works, what doesn't work. When I do this, what happens? So, you know, your dog will have to, since your husband is not invested in learning about and you know, putting into practice good, clear communication and, you know, preventing the dog from going over threshold and things like that, it's just going to be a different relationship, and your dog is still going to be in trial and error land with your husband, but he will be so excited and energetic and engaged about his relationship with you because he's finally got communication going back and forth. So it's just going to be a different relationship. Ideally, and I usually try to get everybody in the family to, you know, show up when we do lessons and stuff, because ideally the dog is going to be handled consistently amongst the family, but that's ideal and that's not normal for the, you know, especially when there's kids and, you know, neighbors and visitors and things like that. It's really hard to get that consistent handling across the board with your dog. So really just focus on your relationship with your dog and work on, you know, gently suggesting maybe doing things a different way to people who are not handling your dog in the way that you want them to, and protect your dog. Protect your dog. So obviously it's dicey with hubby, that's a complicated thing, but if somebody else is approaching, handling, treating, speaking to your dog in a way that makes you uncomfortable and or is making your dog uncomfortable, get them out of there. you know, each dog is an individual, just like each person is an individual, and as their human companion, it's our job in relationship to have a good understanding of what kind of personality they have and what they like, what they want, what feels good to them, and what makes sense to them, and use that knowledge to have a better relationship and better communication.